good old laundry room down in the basement, eh? Well, it's not while we're down here. We're not gonna be doing laundry today. What we're gonna be doing today is we're gonna be popping the Mazdaspeed V3 back onto the road. I hope you enjoyed the sound of my knee just cracking there. It didn't hurt. It's just that I'm getting old and things are starting to make noises. Anyways, let's move on here. I've got a battery charger on the battery, put it on last night. We're gonna pop the battery back into the car and then I'm gonna basically just show you guys what I like to do, you know, when I put the car back on the road, especially because we just built the engine last year and the car hasn't been running since December and it's now March or close to April now. Show you what I like to do when the car hasn't been running in a little while. Let's get right into it. We'll go head over to the garage. Elvis Presley. Okay. This thing's a classic, but it still works. Alright guys, so the first thing I'm going to do before I even put the battery in is I'm going to take these coils out and I'm going to take the spark plugs out. Very gently disconnect coil packs. I didn't bring enough tools with me. Alright, 8mm to remove the coil packs. This is all going to make sense, guys, on why I'm doing this. And again, this is just my way of doing it when the car or when the engine hasn't been running for a while. Because to be quite honest with you, I am super paranoid because we just built the engine and I just want to make sure that everything is in tip-top before we actually fire this thing up. All right, I got the coils out. Let's take the spark plugs out here. Everything's good. Okay. Cylinder number 1 looks pretty good. This is giving us a good chance to take a look at the spark plugs and see how the car's been running last year. Haven't been driving it much, obviously, because we were installing that base map after we built the engine. But spark plugs, so far, looking pretty sweet, looking pretty even, consistent. Nothing out of the ordinary, you know. So that's another reason why you can take the spark plugs out, to see how the car had been running before you stored it. All right, we got spark plugs out, so now we're gonna put the battery in. Battery is now installed, tightened down, spark plugs removed. And by having the spark plugs removed, we can kind of see how the engine's been running prior to storing the car. And they all look good, so that's good. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get inside the car and we're gonna put our accelerator pedal all the way to the floor and we're gonna crank the engine until we start to see oil pressure on our gauge. All we're doing is priming the engine of oil because it hasn't been running all winter. So I wanna make sure that we already have some good oil pressure at the bearings, and that's just so we don't damage the bearings upon initial startup. You know, we don't want to run the engine dry, right? And by having the spark plugs removed, not only do we get to inspect them, but we're also reducing any compression inside the cylinder, so there's basically no load on any of the bearings. Okay, so let's head inside and we'll crank it. Now, ideally, you probably want to have some kind of battery maintainer on this, but we don't have one, and I charged it up overnight, so I'm gonna turn the ignition on. I heard the fuel pump in the tank prime. Everything looks pretty decent so far. You can see right off the bat, we got 74 PSI of fuel pressure coming from the tank. Normally, in stock form, the regulator in the tank will achieve about 60 PSI. Now, if you've seen our last video, we crushed the in-tank fuel pressure regulator slightly to raise this up. We wanted about 70 PSI, but it looks like we're hitting about 74 to 75, roughly. So basically what that means is, under wide open throttle, we're gonna maintain 70 plus PSI of low side fuel pressure. So our auxiliary fuel injectors are gonna get good atomization when that fuel exits those 6-port injectors, We want to have the best possible atomization because, again, it is pre-throttle body injection. So there is more time for larger fuel droplets to build up. And there's also the ability for the fuel to condense against the intake plenum and intercooler piping and stuff like that. So port injection directly in each port is better from what the tuners have told me, because obviously you're guaranteeing that each cylinder is receiving the same amount of fuel, but you're also getting the best possible atomization before the fuel actually enters the cylinders, because the injector's right in the port, right? So there's no ability for the atomization to suffer to some degree, and larger fuel droplets to build up. So what we're gonna do now, guys, is we're gonna crank the engine with our accelerator pedal all the way to the floor, and the gauge on the very right says 0 right now. That's the oil pressure gauge. All I'm doing is priming the engine since it hasn't ran in a while. Like I said, I got the spark plugs out, so we have no load on the bearings. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna put my foot to the floor on the accelerator, clutch in. I'm gonna take it out of gear, obviously, and I'm gonna put the handbrake on. Here we go. We wanna see oil pressure. Let's take a look. Ready? Here we go. Okay, didn't see anything there. Turn it back off, turn it back on. Try it again. I charged the battery overnight, so hopefully it doesn't die on me. Oh. Okay, try one more time. I wanna see a little more pressure than that, but at least we see some pressure. Priming the engine. Perfect. We're ready to start it up, guys. I'm gonna go back out there, put the spark plugs in, put the coils back in, and we'll fire this baby up. All right, so I got the spark plugs and coils put back in. Check the oil level, it's good there. Did a visual inspection under here, I don't see any leaks. Did a visual inspection quickly, just stuck my head underneath the front of the car, and I don't see anything dripping, so that's good. So the oil that I'm running is a AMSOIL Signature Series 10W30 full synthetic engine oil. I decided to give AMSOIL a try because I've done a lot of reading on different testing that they put AMSOIL through in comparison to other oils, and AMSOIL always seems to be sort of on top. Also, AMSOIL is an API SN Plus rated oil. It's also ILSAC GF6 rated, so those ratings and standards are to sort of cope with the newer direct injected engines that are prone to pre-ignition and carbon buildup. So that's kind of why I went with those new oils. So if you've got a direct injected engine, definitely go with an API SN Plus rated oil or an ILSAC GF6 oil. Okay, so we're gonna start this up now. I'm excited. Spring is here, the car is insured. Let's take this thing for a rip. Can't forget to plug this bad boy in. Hopefully it doesn't blow up. on, guys. I already drove it a little bit, but everything seems good. We're on a base map, obviously. It's not making probably like 17 pounds of boost, if that. Really low ignition timing, super rich air to fuel ratio. Got an engine light on for sensor 2 slow response. That's okay, not a big deal. We already know why that's the case. But I got a really sensitive mic on here right now, so let's go for a little spinnerooski. Oh man, everything's so loud in here and rattling, and you know. I'm gonna wait for my coolant temps to come down a little bit. You know, I just drive it around a little bit, let the air cool down the coolant a little. There we go. That custom ducting in the front end, wow, huge help, honestly, massive help. So, you know what, guys? I took load limiting off the first 2 gears, so I wanted to just let it all out, right? So, first and second gear are no longer limiting load, so I'm gonna have to feather the throttle. Let's just see what happens. Logging. Started in first gear. I'm just gonna try a light hit, you know, nothing too crazy, just to get a feel for the car. And about 16.5 pounds of boost. Don't see any knock. We're getting as rich as 9.5 to 1. That's usually in between shifts and during spool up. I don't know how that looks or how that sounds, but first and second gear, you know, obviously a handful. You really gotta feather the throttle in first and second because it's hard to get out of the hole in it with this thing. Especially if I've taken the load limits off first and second gear. But so far it's driving fine. I forgot that we built this engine, and every time I'm reminded that we built this engine, I get nervous again. Last thing I want to do is for this thing to pop. Alright, second gear, let's try it again. Feels pretty good. How's the camera angle? All messed up? Oh crap, I'm getting a phone call! Hang on a second, guys, let me pull over. Shit. God, man, this is fantastic. I love this thing. This is fantastic. It's so fun to have a car to play with. I love it. Alright, let me just pull over, let this thing cool off a bit. Because I'm OCD like that. It does have a built motor, so I'm pretty sure it can handle some abuse, but everything else can't, like the clutch. It's a stock clutch with a lightweight Fidenza flywheel. You know? My shifter linkages feel a little loose too. I feel like I need to upgrade that. What's the best linkage, guys? Which linkage is the best for these cars? I want something that's not gonna break. It's something that really improves shifting. Okay, I'm gonna pull into this little nook here, this little parking garage. I used to have it where you would have first gear, you would have the accelerator pedal pressed all the way down, and you would maintain traction. But I thought, you know what? Let me just make this thing alive. Let me just wake it up. Let me just open up everything. Start off in second gear. We only hit like 15.7 pounds of boost. 9.7 to 1 is the richest we saw, and most likely in between shifts and during spool up. helpful. Obviously, I'm running it kind of rich just for safety, and we're running on just 94 octane right now, and really low ignition timing, only 8 degrees at 6,000 RPM. I'm gonna data log. Got ourselves a BMW. Don't know if that was an M3 or a 335. I think it might have been an M3. Anyways, let's try a little bit of first gear and see what happens. Okay, 16 pounds. Didn't see any knock there. Our richest air to fuel ratio was 9.26 to 1, most likely in between shifts. Coolant temp dropped right down to 183 because of that ducting. Custom ducting. Custom ducting really keeps the coolant temps in check once you start moving, especially if you've got a front mount intercooler that blocks the radiator. You know? I don't know what it is, but I get nervous when I drive this thing because I haven't driven it much, and this is the first time I've taken it out since last year. And it's been on a base map for a while because of the fact that I'm scared. But I'm gonna turn it up. You know, I mean, you can already see that first and second gear are a handful. That's okay. I don't hear wastegate flutter in third gear. Maybe I need to increase the wastegate duty cycle a little bit to try to get some more flutter. But anyways, I'm using the watt box to limit revs as opposed to the Accessport. I've got the Accessport rev limiter set to 9,500, which I will never reach. And I've got the watt box rev limiter set to 6,800 RPM right now. So if it does hit 6,800 RPM, it's going to disable the ignition system to limit the RPM, which is what you should use if you're running auxiliary fuel to prevent a lean mixture. Even though I'm not running auxiliary fuel yet. Let's do a pull here. Let's start data logging this again. It's always good to data log when you do pulls, just to, if something goes wrong, you can see what went wrong. Second gear, let's try it out. Only 16 pounds of boost, guys. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Once that S5 kicks in, man, holy smokes. It's just a monster once it opens up. Like, I tried to, like, keep my throttle steady in second gear, but once the boost kicks in, it just kicks in. Like, I can't, like, can't really feather it too much. It's almost like I have to let off more once it kicks in. But it kicks in nice. It kicks in real nice. It's running good, guys. I mean, we're not getting any knock. We're hitting 16 pounds of boost right there. Air to fuel ratio looks good. Fuel pressure looks good. Oil pressure looks good on the gauges. Low side fuel pressure looks good on the gauges. All right, let's pull off to the side here in our dungeon and talk a little bit more about the setup. This is just basically a video of me taking the car out of storage, how I do it, and hopefully you guys find some value in this. So I'm just having fun right now. It's terrifying, honestly. I'm terrified of this car. I'm like Vin Diesel with his muscle car. It terrifies me. You know, it scares the hell out of me. First of all, I'm worried that it's going to pop or blow up because I built it and I spent a lot of money on it, which doesn't seem like that's going to happen. But I'm also worried about, you know, the authorities. Because, you know, we're doing a lot of interesting driving here. Anyways, I'm going to pop the hood and we'll let it cool off and we'll talk a little bit about it. Woo! Put it in first gear so she don't roll in case the handbrake fails. All right. Hood pop. All right, guys, so the car is driving good. You know, I don't have any leaks everything seems fine. So I'm quite content with that, because that means we can start playing with it, turning the power up a little bit. But you saw that, I mean, like first and second gear, they're already kind of a handful. So with first and second in a front wheel drive, especially in this thing, I don't know, it's a handful. So when I say I'm gonna turn the power up, what I really mean is I'm gonna turn the power up in third and fourth. That's the thing with these, you know, getting out of the hole, getting moving is challenging. Because in the Gen 1 especially, the gear ratios are shorter than the Gen 2. So you're multiplying torque a lot faster, or a lot more. Either way, tons of fun, love it. Setup looks good. What we'll do is, I'll just keep updating you guys on how it goes. The data logs, the parameters on the Accessport look good. We're not getting any knock and stuff like that. The setup, it flows very well, which is why I think as soon as that boost kicks in, it kicks in really hard, because it flows. Like the intake side flows very well. The exhaust side flows very well. The turbine housings is 0.82 AR, you know, for the BNR S5, which is, from what a lot of tuners say, is perfect for this size engine. And I don't even have any port work done on the cylinder head. I've just got upgraded valve springs. So huge improvement, and it's going to be a lot of fun once we start turning it up. So stay tuned to the channel. I'll keep you guys updated on the process of tuning this thing. And again, like I said, it's mainly going to be tuning for third and fourth, because, you know, first and second are kind of useless. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and we'll see you in the next video. All the best, guys.